What's good, YouTube? It's your boy L3ight, and I'm back with another video. Today we finna be watching Takeoff's death and his untold story. You know, Takeoff's death was very worldwide almost. Like people was like, dang, he really died. Like nobody expect any of the Migos to go out like that. You know what I'm saying? So like, comment, subscribe, and let's get straight to it.
Murder was one of the most shocking moments in hip-hop in the last few years. A night that was supposed to be a casual hangout in Houston turned into a tragedy that nobody saw coming.
Facts.
When the news broke, headlines told the same story. Takeoff killed over a dice game gone wrong. But that's not the full story. There are still a lot of misconceptions about what actually happened that night. So in this video, we're going to break down the real story behind Takeoff's murder, how things escalated that night, and the case developments that left more questions than answers.
Damn.
Now, Takeoff wasn't just another rapper. He was 1/3 of Migos,
Facts.
the group that took Atlanta's trap sound and pushed it into the mainstream.
Facts.
And Migos wasn't just a rap group. It was a movement and a family, which consisted of Quavo, Offset, and
Bro, without the Migos, bro, like, there's so much things that wouldn't be happening, like the rap sounds and all that, like, word.
Last but not least, Kershnick Ball, professionally known as Takeoff. Now, Quavo was Takeoff's uncle. However, the three of them grew up together in Gwinnett County, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. Quavo and Takeoff were raised in the same house, while Offset joined their circle in the 6th grade. Eventually, Quavo and Takeoff introduced Offset to rap, and from there, Migos was born. Migos didn't just make hits, they changed the entire sound of modern hip-hop. Their triplet flow,
They really did, bro.
first popularizing songs like Versace and Hannah Montana, became one of the most imitated styles in this generation of rap. The first major breakthrough came in 2013 with Versace. But what really took them to the next level was when Drake hopped on the remix. That moment catapulted them into mainstream success. And from there, they dominated the charts, dropping hit after hit. Fight Night, T-shirt, Bad and Bougie, Motorsport, you name it. Beyond just music, Migos influenced fashion and hip-hop, and of course, the way rappers structure their flows. They were pioneers, and Takeoff played a huge role in that success. But by 2022, things weren't the same for the group. The group had stopped moving as a unit, and there were rumors that Offset and Quavo had fallen out, with speculation
Over a girl, bro. Or women are really the end of, like, the best, like, duos, trios, men, like, everything, bro.
that it has something to do with Offset allegedly sleeping with Quavo's ex, Sweetie. Quavo seemed to reference this in his song Messy, rapping, "BITCH, F my dog behind my back, but I ain't stressing." None of them ever confirmed the rumors publicly, but one thing was clear. Migos weren't clearly together anymore.
You can't just act like and just continue, like, and I think people be trying to make it like it's not about, it's like Alexis, like, we can't continue our group without the main man.
Then in November 2022, everything changed forever. A night that started as a private gathering had sadly now turned into national tragedy.
At approximately,
You know, people have their own, like, thoughts on it. People say it's a sacrifice or some other things, you know, but I don't know, man. What y'all think?
2:30 this morning, our officers were dispatched out here to a shooting that had just occurred. Upon arrival, they located multiple shell casings on the 3rd level of the building at the 810 Bowling and Billiards. I guess it's a bowling and pool hall. We were informed that there was a private party being held at the event last night that ended at approximately 1 a.m., but the party carried over till about 2 a.m. until they were cleared out. That's when the shooting occurred, where it left one male deceased on scene.
So it really only took an hour. Like, if he would have left at 1 a.m., then he would have been straight, but he didn't, though, so.
And 2 others that were transported to area hospitals nearby.
On November 1st, 2022, Takeoff and Quavo were in Houston, Texas, attending a private gathering at 810 Billiards and Bowling, an upscale venue in downtown Houston. The event was hosted by J Prince Jr., the son of Rap-A-Lot Records founder J Prince, a powerful figure in the rap industry, known for his deep ties to Houston's hip-hop scene. The guest list was exclusive, with around 40 to 50 attendees, including local music industry figures, promoters, and close affiliates of J Prince Jr. Security was present, but this wasn't a club event. This was a private invitation-only affair. The official event wrapped up around 1 a.m., but just like most private functions, many guests, including Takeoff and Quavo, stuck around for an hour. Conversations continued, drinks were poured, and the night carried on as usual inside. By 2:30 a.m., the gathering spilled out onto the 3rd floor balcony area, which overlooked Houston's streets below.
Damn.
The mood seemed relaxed at first, but shortly after that, things took a deadly turn. As tension escalated, Quavo found himself face-to-face with multiple people, caught in a heated argument over a dice game where someone had lost a large amount of money.
That's what's wrong with the black community, bro. People be crashing out over nothing, and they change their whole life. They go to jail, they die, like,
The situation grew more intense by the
crazy.
second. Surveillance footage later captured Quavo visibly frustrated, attempting to de-escalate the situation and walk away. But before he could leave, things escalated quickly. His last words before it all went left, "We don't play like that, bruh." Seconds later, gunfire erupted. At least 2 different weapons were fired. Chaos broke out as people scrambled for cover, running in all directions. Police later
See,
recovered
niggas just gotta pull up the dukes, you feel me? Like, put down the guns, man. Come
the
on.
10 shell casings at the scene, 9 from a 40 caliber firearm and 1 from a 9mm firearm. Takeoff was unfortunately caught in the crossfire. He was hit twice, once in the back and once in the head. Both bullets later recovered from his body were medium caliber. 2 other people, a 23-year-old woman and a 24-year-old woman, were also shot and rushed to the hospital. At about 2:30 a.m., police eventually received a call about a shooting at 1210 San Jacinto Street in downtown Houston. When officers arrived, the scene was nearly empty. Most of the witnesses had already fled. Security was, however, present, but none of them saw who pulled the trigger. Takeoff was already pronounced dead at this point. With little immediate cooperation from witnesses, detectives had to rely on hard evidence to piece together what happened. Surveillance footage from the scene later revealed a Patrick Clark in the crowd, holding a gun in one hand and an object in the other. As the chaos unfolded, Clark was seen firing multiple rounds. Forensic analysis determined that the shots fired by Clark aligned with the direction where Takeoff was standing. Clark was the only person visibly caught on surveillance, discharging a firearm in that direction. After firing those shots, Clark fled on foot, briefly ducking inside the House of Blues, before disappearing from the scene. With so many people refusing to come forward, Houston police publicly pleaded for anyone at the private gathering to share information. But despite the heavy media attention, over 30 witnesses remained silent.
Right now, Houston police say they've got very few leads in the fatal shooting of rapper Takeoff, part of the group Migos. This morning, police are asking witnesses to come forward with any video or testimony they might have that could help lead them to an arrest.
At this point, Patrick Clark was already on their radar as a potential suspect, but they had yet to fully identify him. Investigators simply needed more leads, more evidence, and most importantly, cooperation from witnesses. But despite their efforts, over 30 people who had been at the scene decided to stay silent.
Is she texting someone behind your back? A single Spokio search can help you find out who she's messaging.
Nobody.
That right there is very smart, because they could get in an instant. Like, someone get a hit on them.
wanted to talk, whether out of fear, loyalty, or simply not wanting to be labeled a snitch. Nobody was willing to come forward. We've boiled it down to over.
When did Speaks start showing his face? I'm confused. Like,
30 people that were standing outside the bowling alley. Homicide Division Sergeant Michael Burrows said, "Literally every single one of those people left the scene without giving a statement to police. We found a few of them that night. We found others since then. But it's important that those people come forward," Houston police said. With no cooperation from witnesses, police were left with one undeniable fact. Kirshner Kari Ball, known to the world as Takeoff, had just became the latest victim of gun violence. Takeoff's death shook the entire hip-hop community. Fans were grieving, Atlanta was grieving, but nobody felt it more than the people who knew him the best. Offset was definitely hurting. You could see it in his eyes every time he spoke about Take. They built an empire together, and now 1/3 of Migos was gone forever. Quavo was also hurting, and in early 2023, he dropped a song called Without You, a heartbreaking tribute to Takeoff. And man, when I first heard the song, I gotta say, like, this one hit different. You could definitely feel every ounce of pain in his voice. But if there's anyone who felt this loss, on a level deeper than anyone else, it was Takeoff's mother, Tatiana Davenport. For Tatiana, this wasn't just a tragedy. It was a failure of security, a failure of responsibility, and a failure to protect her son. In June 2023, she filed a wrongful death lawsuit.
Rappers, bro, like, you get all this money, bro. All this money, you're blessed. You got out the hood, and you tell me you crashing out like this.
Suit against A10 Billiards and
even though it wasn't his fault at all, like, you shouldn't even be putting yourself in those type of situations, bro. You need to just get up out of there. Go get an island or something, my nigga.
The very establishment where Takeoff was killed. Her argument, this tragedy could have been prevented. The lawsuit claimed that the venue knew this event would attract celebrities, athletes, and high-profile guests. Yet, there was no proper security screening, no enforcement of after-hour rules, and no measures in place to prevent violence. And when tensions started rising that night, nothing was done to de-escalate the situation. Since Takeoff was a part of the argument, his mother believes his death could have been prevented if the venue had taken proper precautions. And this right here did raise an unsettling question. Was Takeoff's death something that could have been avoided? Or was this really just about being in the wrong place at the wrong time? Did a lack of security create this perfect storm for disaster? Either way, Tatiana wasn't gonna let things go unanswered. But long before Takeoff's mother took legal action, investigators were still deep in the process of building their case, piece by piece. With little information from witnesses, detectives had no choice but to rely on hard evidence to reconstruct what really happened that night. So they methodically pieced together the case using surveillance footage, cell phone videos, ballistic evidence, And through this process, police eventually identified 2 individuals connected to the crime scene. Cameron Joshua,
Like, they just look like they don't got nothing to lose. Like, it's like, come on, bro.
22 years old, was the first suspect arrested. However, he was only charged with weapons charges, not murder. We believe Cameron Joshua has been appropriately charged in this case, said prosecutor Matt Gilliam. While Joshua's arrest brought some progress, it still didn't answer the biggest question: who pulled the trigger? After weeks of forensic analysis and video review, authorities identified Patrick Clark as a primary suspect.
Damn.
Through that, we were able to deduce that Patrick Clark is a lethal shooter in the case. That's why he's charged with murder, the Houston Police Department said. Using ballistic reports, surveillance footage, and forensic evidence, police built their case against Clark. The trajectory of his gunfire aligned with Takeoff's wounds. Investigators later discovered Clark had left behind a wine bottle at the House of Blues. His fingers on it directly linked him to the crime scene. With this evidence, police secured an arrest warrant. And
See, crash out niggas and alcohol does not mix, bro. Like, something gonna happen, bro. I swear.
on December 2nd, 2022, exactly 31 days after Takeoff's death, Patrick Xavier Clark, 33 years old at the time, was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions surrounding Takeoff's tragic death was that he was somehow involved in what happened that night, but he wasn't. There was a lucrative dice game that went on at the event. There was an argument that happened afterward, outside the bowling alley, which led to the shooting. I can tell you that Takeoff was not involved in playing the dice game. He was not involved in the argument that happened outside. He was not armed. Now, Takeoff was only at the spot because Quavo was there. I mean, he wasn't gambling and, he wasn't really caught up in anything. He was only there because they always moved together. Wherever Quavo was, Takeoff was right there beside him.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this story so tragic. Takeoff was always described as quiet, introverted, and focused on the music, while
Right.
Offset and Quavo embraced more of the lifestyle that came with the fame. Takeoff was different. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, and he wasn't looking for any trouble. But that night, they weren't just anywhere. They were out in Houston after hours,
Yeah.
in an environment that can get gritty. A group of men, many of them drinking, egos high, playing a dice game, standing outside a venue in the middle of the night. It was a recipe for disaster, and the worst part,
Facts.
Takeoff had nothing to do with this.
Exactly.
Do you really want to spend the rest of your life watching ads? Guys, just download Pi. It's a free Google Chrome extension and it basically blocks ads for you.
And honestly, this is exactly why I keep my black ass inside. I mean, you could literally be minding your business, not bothering anyone, and still end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Some situations just ain't really worth being around, honestly. After his arrest, Patrick Clark's bond was initially set at $2 million, but his attorneys pushed back hard, arguing that he couldn't afford it and was not a flight risk. Prosecutors, however, saw it differently. They pointed to court documents showing that Clark applied for an expedited passport to Mexico right after Takeoff's death. He
That's
also had a large
crazy.
amount of cash on him at the time of his arrest, raising concerns that he may have been planning to flee. Clark's attorneys fought hard to get his bond reduced to $300,000, arguing that he simply couldn't afford anything higher. But Judge Josh Hill wasn't buying it. The judge
Yeah.
pointed out that Clark himself had previously made statements suggesting he had access to money. And on top of that, there were bail bond companies willing to take on a risk. So instead of the $2 million originally set, the judge lowered it to $1 million, but no further. For Clark's defense team, it was a partial win, but the reality was he still couldn't afford to walk free, at least not yet.
Facts.
Then, unexpectedly, Clark posted bond a little over a month after he got arrested for Takeoff's murder. And this is where things got a little suspicious. They ended up finding out that there was a private investigator who was working for Takeoff's accused killer's attorney, and he was listed in the bond paperwork as the facilitator of his release.
Damn.
But this private investigator was apparently not even actually behind Patrick Clark getting released. So the question is, where did the money come from? Clark's attorney later stated that a family friend and a concerned citizen had helped secure his release. But beyond that, the true source of the funds still remain unclear.
I think we really know what happened, you feel me? I think Quavo did that, you know what I'm saying? Or Offset, one of them did it. Freed him. Pop, pop. You feel me? That's it.
Now, even with his release, Patrick Clark wasn't free to move as he pleased. He was placed under house arrest, required to wear a GPS ankle monitor, and barred from contacting witnesses, victims, or their families. Yet, one major question still remained. Was Patrick Clark truly the only one responsible? Now, Clark was the man police charged with Takeoff's murder. He was identified through forensic evidence, surveillance footage, and ballistics. However, the case was far from over. And this is where we get to a plot twist in this case, okay? A major plot twist that a lot of platforms still haven't really covered. So if you made it this far, make sure you drop a like on this video, okay? I appreciate you.
I got you,
Because
gang.
what I'm about to tell you changes everything, okay? Now, the plot twist is this. A Houston Forensic Science Center analyst who was reportedly involved in processing evidence in the Takeoff murder case, was fired for mishandling DNA evidence in multiple cases.
Whoa.
Documents reveal that this now former analyst allegedly committed serious evidence processing errors that might have affected several investigations, including Takeoff's murder.
Forensic analyst Rochelle Austin was considered a witness in the case against Patrick Clark, a man who police believe is responsible for shooting and killing Grammy-nominated rapper Takeoff at a Houston bowling alley. State's DNA samples Austin processed had been switched in one instance. In another, court documents say she skipped a step and processed the wrong sample.
Damn.
These are cases unrelated to Clark, but according to criminal defense attorney Murray Newman, the Brady notice is an indicator to the defense that there is something that may contradict their client's guilt.
Just when the case against Patrick Clark seemed airtight, this happened. This forensic analyst at the Houston Forensic Science Center was now at the center of this controversy, and she actually ended up getting fired for this. Now, this isn't just speculation, this is on record. The Harris County District Attorney's Office filed what's called a Brady Notice, a legal document that requires them to inform Patrick Clark's defense team about the termination of this forensic analyst and any issues that could affect a fair trial. Now, they said that the reason for her termination was lack of quality work, among other serious concerns. She apparently switched DNA samples in one case, and she also skipped a step and processed the wrong sample in another.
Oh my
While
goodness.
these specific errors were reportedly in other cases, the fact still remains. This forensic
Bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. This reminds me like some Criminal Minds shit, some like, you know, Lucifer, like the show Lucifer shit. Like,
analyst was apparently involved in the Takeoff investigation. So now the biggest question is, how much of a role did she actually play? Because if there's even a slight chance that any of her work touched the forensic evidence in this case, it could change everything. And that's exactly what Takeoff's accused killer's defense team is now questioning. This is something of concern for us, and we will be investigating it to see exactly how it affects our client's case, Patrick Clark's attorney said. Now, let's not forget, the entire reason Patrick Clark was arrested wasn't just forensic evidence. It was a combination of forensic analysis, surveillance footage, and ballistics. And like we talked about, he was caught on surveillance footage holding a gun and firing shots the night Takeoff was killed. They also said he left a wine bottle behind, and that his fingerprints on that bottle linked him to the crime scene. But now, with this forensic analyst's credibility completely in question, the defense has a major opening to challenge how the forensic evidence in this case was handled. And according to a criminal defense attorney, whose name is Murray Newman, who's not involved in this particular case but spoke on a forensic mishandling issue, this is apparently a huge problem for the prosecution. Since she did mess up, they can never put her on a stand again, and the defense attorney would eat her alive,
Facts.
he said. So what exactly does all this mean? Well, if the forensic evidence is compromised in any way, it could weaken.
especially if it's like someone like Angela, you feel me, from Power, you feel me, or, you know, Method Man tool, bro, like, word, like.
The entire case against Takeoff's accused killer. And even if one inconsistency is found in how the DNA was processed, this could actually be enough for Patrick Clark's defense team to challenge the charges, meaning Takeoff's alleged killer could walk free. After posting bond in early 2023, Patrick Clark was placed on house arrest with a GPS monitor strapped to his ankle and was required to surrender his passport as part of his bond conditions. For months, this was his reality. But then in November 2023, the case took another unexpected turn. A judge ruled to remove his house arrest and GPS monitoring restrictions, meaning Clark was no longer confined to his home. However, that didn't mean he was completely free. He was still required to follow strict legal conditions: a nightly curfew from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., banned from contacting witnesses, victims, or Takeoff's family, required to appear in court whenever scheduled. But here's the thing, since that last legal update in November 2023, there hasn't been any official word on his current status. Is Clark still out on bond? Have new restrictions been placed on him? Or has something changed behind the scenes? Right now, we don't have the answers, but one thing we do know, his case is far from over.
Damn.
Just a few days ago in February 2025, Patrick Clark was scheduled to appear in court, but once again, the trial has stalled. And this time, the holdup isn't from witness silence or legal delays. It's because of the forensic controversy that has cast doubt over the evidence.
Still?
As it stands, Patrick Clark is still facing murder charges. But with this forensic scandal shaking up the case, the biggest question now is, what happens next? Now, his defense could definitely challenge the forensic evidence, forcing the court to re-examine how solid the case really is. I mean, it's crazy to say that even if one little inconsistency is found in how the DNA was processed, it could literally be enough to argue that this entire forensic process was compromised. And if that argument holds up, well, I'm sure we all know what it means. It could change everything.
Right.
But regardless of what...
But damn, bro. Not gonna lie, RP Takeoff, bro. He really was a legend, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this case has been going on for years. Cases probably go on for years upon years. But, bro, I feel like, bro, it's so obvious. Like, I feel like the cams should show who really shot him, who was shooting, you know, things like that. But I hope y'all like, comment, and subscribe. This is my other channel right here. I hope y'all enjoyed the vid, and I'll catch y'all next time.